We begin here this hour. Former President Jacob Zuma has been expelled from the ANC, and this has been revealed in documents in possession of the SABC. The NDC has found Zuma guilty by the party's National Disciplinary Committee of prejudicing the integrity of the organization by acting in collaboration with the Mkhonto weSizwe Party in a manner contrary to the aims and policies and objectives of the ANC. He has 21 days to appeal the judgment to the ANC's National Committee of Appeals. And for more on this, we're now joined by SABC News political editor Mzwandile Mbeje, and he joins us now. Mzwai, thank you so much for your time this evening, and thank you so much for joining us. Of course, looking at that breaking news coming in this evening, many of us would say we're really not surprised by what the ANC Disciplinary Committee has taken there in that decision.
Oh yes, Mbali, very good evening. It's not surprising at all, given that when on the 16th of December, former president announced that he would be campaigning and voting for a newly formed party then, which was MK, that was in violation of Rule 25 of the ANC's constitution, so which basically says you cannot campaign or promote a political party that is rivaling the ANC. So clearly, that alone was good enough to get him perhaps hauled before the DC. And then, given the nature of what has happened, it was indeed a foregone conclusion that he would be expelled.
And, you know, we were expecting the former President Jacob Zuma to appear virtually in that disciplinary hearing, but we understand that that did not take place, and instead he had asked one of his colleagues, of course, to take part in that disciplinary hearing. But we also understand that he was not able to do so. What do we know about, you know, the merits of this disciplinary hearing if there was no one really representing the former president in that regard?
You know that, Mbali, the ANC constitution provides that you can be represented by any member of the ANC in good standing. So that is what needs to happen. That's why you saw Tony Yengini who representing him. But I think the issue was when this matter was first brought to the fore, when the ANC decided to charge him and hold him before the DC. At first, it was to happen at Luthuli House. As the plans to get it underway at Luthuli House, the former president already has a party, and the party decided that they were going to go to Luthuli House, and then it was the time when there was a serious build-up to the elections, and then of course political tensions couldn't be ruled out. So all those things would have to be taken into account. So the ANC then, given that we were in an election period, decided it was going to postpone. Obviously, it asked the NDC, which is supposed to act independent of the ANC, it asked that this be postponed until after the elections. And then, of course, we saw that happen. And one of the things, given the issue around making sure that you have no situation where there is political tensions, particularly outside the Luthuli House, because the members of MK wanted to go and support former President Zuma outside the Luthuli House. So the NDC decided no. So we are going to go ahead, but would want it to be a virtual sitting. So that is the issue that started to then perhaps was at the center of disagreeing between the NDC and former president. But of course, he then sent his representative, which was Tony Yengini, who also raised that matter to say they would like this to be a physical activity where he would then speak to those who are charging him and look them in the eye. But of course, that was rejected. So clearly, in the last sitting, the former president was not there, and then Tony Yengini did attend, but he couldn't conclude the proceedings. So the NDC had a duty to conclude this matter. So the final decision, I mean, there was no one who was defending him. The final decision, based on the evidence that is available, was the expulsion.
And Mzwandile, the ANC has been criticized largely for how it has handled this matter. I mean, we've known about the MK party as early as last year. And of course, you were saying that they've been trying to manage this situation. But at the end of the day, even though they were trying to manage this situation, it did come and harm them when it came to the polls. So really dragging their feet when it comes to dealing with its former president really didn't help the ANC much.
I think the formation of MK in Bali was basically something that was, I want to put it this way. The formation of MK was the culmination of the fact that these two parties would not agree on anything. Because if they had agreed before, there was no need for the formation of MK. But because they had reached a point where former president felt the only way out, or the only way to perhaps express himself, is to form a political party. So clearly, then the worst fears actually happened, because that formation of MK Mbali, we know, yes, we know there were other political parties which were contesting election, but the electoral loss of the ANC to dip way below 15 is directly attributable to the Umkhonto party. Look at the number of votes it got and where the ANC is. So clearly, you had a former president who understood the workings of the governing party, which was the ANC then, and then who was very aggrieved. And then he obviously wanted to prove a point. That is why he kept on saying, I want to correct the ANC. Obviously, I mean, people disagreed, particularly the ANC disagreed with that assertion, to say, how are you correcting something when you are outside? And the fact that even when he had formed the new party, he decided he was going to continue to be a member of the ANC. So those are some of the issues that basically, just forget about what has happened now, but those issues told us that they were deep-seated, unresolved, complex issues between the ANC and former president, and that's why it got to where it got. And then, let's be honest, I don't think there was going to be any other outcome after this DC, because we are not lawyers, but I mean, the cursory look at the ANC constitution is quite clear, if you remember what is it that you ought to do and not to do. So I'm not surprised this happened, but I don't think it's over yet. Yes, he has 21 days to appeal, but even after that appeal, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of him going to court. He actually had indicated during the hearing, when he said he might go to court to force a physical sitting. So I don't think this matter is over by a long shot.
Yeah. All right, Mzwandile, thank you so much for your time and for that clarity. That's our SABC News political editor, Mzwandile Mbeje, there, just giving us an insight in terms of the breaking news that we've seen. Those are documents that the SABC is in possession of, and showing the finalization and the decision from the ANC's disciplinary committee when it comes to the hearing of former President Jacob Zuma. Of course, he has at least 21 days to appeal this matter.